use of the interactive tool we've built to be able to monitor the progression of the COVID-19 disease around the world. Basically, when you start it up, and there's a link in the notes associated with this video to let you get directly to the online version, you start with the latest values that we have from the World Health Organization. These go live typically around 9 a.m. Eastern Time every day. So this gets continuously updated. So every time you go back, you'll be able to get the latest available information. So let's see what we're tracking. So we're tracking the top 10 countries in terms of total number of cases to date. And let's see what we can find here. So if you look on the x-axis, so here, basically what we've got is the percentage increase on that day, okay? So basically telling you what percentage growth you've seen. In the y-axis, we're measuring the total number of cases for that country. Okay, so each bubble represents one country, and we use the standard two-letter codes for the countries. So US is the United States, FR is France, IT is Italy, for instance. And if we want to find information specific to that country, you can just hover over this to be able to see what the value is. So here, looking at the US numbers for the current date, so this is the values for April 1st, we see that the percentage growth is 18.306, which is a fairly large growth, and of all the countries we're monitoring here, that's the largest growth. Okay, the current number of cases, again, what we're representing on the vertical axis is 213,372. I'll get to the status later as well. We'll go through this demonstration to show you how you can use that to make specific countries stand out, okay? And the diameter of the bubble is related to the number of new cases. This is how many new cases were reported on that day. So here for April 1st, there were 25,200 cases, new cases reported in the United States. Okay, so let's go look at another country to see what this tells me. So let's look at France here. Percentage daily growth there again is 12.324%. Number of cases, 57,749, and the total number of new cases for that day is 4,922. Okay, so this gives you a view on a given day. The interesting thing with this is that we wanted to be able to let you navigate through time to see how the spread of the disease evolved over time. So let's look at the two buttons here, the minus and the plus button. If I hit the minus button, I'll go back one day, okay? And here we go. You see that moved a little bit. So we see the date here is March 31st now, and we can look and see what the values were there. So we can see that one day earlier, the actual daily growth rate was 19.605%, okay, so much higher than it was. But we can do this a little bit more, so let's look at the other buttons here. First of all, let's go back to the top, and now we're going to do something where I'm going to go to the origin of time for this series, which for us is January 22nd, which is the first day that the World Health Organization started publishing data for all the countries that it covers. So let's go one past the latest date, and that takes us all the way to the origin. Okay, if I go back a frame, it takes me to the end. Okay, so basically time wraps with the plus and the minus button. So you can do that. If you want to go to the origin, you can also hit the reset button, and that will take you to January 22nd. Okay, if we look up here, that's January 22nd. We get the dates from the beginning of the recordings of all the information. Now, one of the interesting things that we wanted to be able to see was to visualize the progression of these numbers. Okay, on January 22nd, China already had 548 cases. And since this is the origin of the recording, the percentage daily growth was 0 at that point. But we can hit the play button now and watch an animation as these values evolve over time. And the idea behind this animation is to be able to get insights into how this disease propagates throughout the world. So let's hit play and we can look at various things here. Okay, so we notice at the very beginning when you have a very small number of cases, specifically less than 10, you'll see that the percentage daily growth can go all the way to the right because adding in 2 cases when you've only had 4 means a 50% growth. So you see very wild moves right at the beginning, but that starts calming down as we get to more and more cases. Now we can see that typically we'll see elements start to grow here. So let's pause it and look at what happened here. So what did we see? We saw Korea is over here now at almost 1,000 cases, okay, with a daily growth rate of over 63%. This is around the time where Korea starts implementing a large amount of testing and we'll start seeing the effects of that. So watch Korea as it evolves. Okay, let me hit the play button again and we'll resume so we can follow along. And you notice that the diameter gets bigger and bigger as we go along. And originally here, we still have very large rates. So let's pause that and see what's happening. So from that 63% that we saw earlier, our percentage daily growth has now started tumbling down to 19.339%, but that's still a fairly high rate. And we'll see that as Korea deals with social distancing, with doing a large amount of testing and treating more and more people, that number comes down dramatically. So what we're going to do is we'll still see the number of cases go up, okay, but we'll see the percentage start coming down. We'll see Korea start drifting to the left, which is where we want to be. We want to be as close to 0 as possible in terms of percentage daily growth rate to say that we've actually controlled the disease. So let's play that some more and watch that happen, okay? And as we can see, 2 things happen in Korea. First of all, the daily new case numbers start going down. So what we see is the diameter of the bubble that represents Korea goes down and it starts drifting closer to that percentage rate of 0. So let's pause it right now, have a look and see where is it here. See, we're at a percentage of roughly 1%. Once you've gotten your numbers down to below 1%, you're pretty much controlling the spread of the disease, and that's where you want to be. Okay? So that gives you an idea of how you interpret these numbers. Let's play this to the end, and let's watch the US right now to see what's happening in the US. What we have right now is the US is starting to catch up at this point. Okay, so we're looking at the very last days of March. We already know we have an explosion in New York State, and we're seeing percentage growth that is still very high. If you look at the percentage here, that's 29.58%. That means you're adding in a third as much as what you've seen right now every single day when you're at this level. So states like California, like Washington, like New York have already imposed social distancing, and we'll start to see that pay off because we'll see the bubble in the US start drifting left. So let's watch that. Let's play it again up until the end and you'll see what's happening. So you see the US keeps on going steadily left, which is really what we want to see. But the concerning part is that the US today, so on April 2nd, we're looking at the values from April 1st, the US is still the one with the highest growth rate, so still growing at 18.306%, and that's a large number. Everything that the US is trying to do right now is to impose social distancing, making sure that non-essential services don't open, that we can limit the contact of people so we can limit the spread of the virus. That's really important, okay? So let's say that the country that I'm most interested in, so I personally live in Canada, let's go look and see what would happen if I wanted to go and track Canada. So let's start putting that in, and there we go, got Canada right there. Let's autocomplete that, and the country code for Canada is CA. Let's add that in and then reset it to 0. And we see Canada appear highlighted. Okay, that's that orange blip at the bottom there. And let's play it from there. And now we can see how Canada starts evolving. And at the very beginning, when there are no cases, it doesn't do much. Now, little by little, we start getting a few cases. Let's pause it just to go and look at the numbers for Canada here. So we're talking about 4 cases total, 2 new cases, which brings us up to a fairly high percentage rate in terms of how things have been moving along. And let's continue playing that. And we'll see that at first, it's fairly slow growth. And let's track this to see where it goes. Okay, so Canada is just about at the point where it's going to cross 10 cases, and this is where it starts getting interesting. Now we'll see that there's been 10 cases confirmed. That means the tests have come back positive, but we know that there are actually a lot more cases that haven't yet been detected, and as we evolve, we'll see that the number of cases will start to skyrocket here. So we can watch that happen for any country. If I want to add in another country, I just add it in with the country name and the code. The software will test to make sure that you are tapping in a valid country, and will suggest that you actually look at the auto completions to see if we know where the country is and if we have data for it. Okay, so let's look at something else that I might want to do. So let me see if I'd like to be able to easily compare the US, which is already here, but it's not being highlighted. One of the little tricks that you can do with this is let's put the US in here. Now we'll scroll down to see that it's right there and put its country code here. And let's add it in and start the animation again. Okay, so let's reset that. And you'll notice now the US is highlighted, and when you play it, now we can easily compare the US to Canada by seeing them because they stand out in terms of color. Okay, so those are the basic ways of using this software. At any point when you want to go and look at the data at a point in time, you can stop it and then hover over it. Okay, so here if we look at February 7th, United States had 11 total cases, Canada had 7, so pretty much the same things. But as we evolve, we can see where the US starts taking off and where things start getting dangerous. It's typically once you've reached over 100 cases in a country, you know you've got a problem, and that's when the ideal time is to be able to start treating. Anytime you wait, it just gets worse. So we hope that this helps you visualize the data and look at how things work and be able to trace the evolution of the disease across multiple countries. Thank you.